welcome to Catch You Outdoors. I'm your host, Captain Rob Modies. This podcast is about living and playing in the Florida Keys. I cover my favorite sport, fishing, but also all the many things to see and do down here in the islands. Thank you so much for tuning in, and now it's time to kick back and relax with me in the Keys. This week's episode of Catch You Outdoors is number 188. Catch You Outdoors brought to you by Spotify and lots of other streaming podcast sites. This week's title, Key West Songwriters Festival Review. But first, some notes and information as usual, and the Tiki Bar is open. If you know, you know. I'm recording this after 5 o'clock. Actually, it's getting close to 6 o'clock in the evening on Wednesday. So, yes, the Tiki Bar is open. In reference to this week's title, we have returned from almost 6 days in Key West, enjoying some of the best music from hundreds of songwriters. Yes, it's time to get back to more normal things with a more normal schedule. If you've spent time recreating in the Key West, then you know what I'm talking about. So, I do, however, really enjoy waking up to cafe con leche and then a late breakfast with a Bloody Mary. That's not really a bad habit, is it? I mean, come on. We live in the Keys, all of the Keys. Islamorada is known as being quite laid back. So, although here it seems to be, it's more about fishing than anything else, and just living the good life. The weather's most certainly slipped into summer. The humidity is up. Not really oppressive, but noticeable. The oppressive part's coming soon enough. It's time to sweat, but it almost always makes the swimming pool and snorkeling on the reefs much more fun and more appealing to me. I'm not one for water under the low 80s. I don't do chilly water. I don't relish getting in a pool in the 70s, or for that matter, getting in the Atlantic Ocean when it's in the 70s. Tides this week are high in the morning, way high, and low in the mid-afternoon, around 2 o'clock. Full moon's on the 12th, so that's going to push some real water around. It's already started. After all, it's May. That's when we start getting real tides. I'm busting a gut to get out there, and that should happen soon. Obviously, the trip to Key West got in the way, but yeah, everything has gotten in the way. And I was outside patting my boat, telling it I still love it, so it knows. Hooked the charger up. Hopefully, I might try to get out there this week. The winds, of course, are back up again, of course, but hopefully things will slack off because we really are starting to get into what I call the true summer weather down here. My newest song, Adios, Mr. Hemingway, has been released, and it's available on most download and streaming sites. Give it a listen, please. Let me know what you think. I'm pretty proud of it. I hope you like it. I've heard back from a few people that go, wow, so that makes me feel good. Thank you much to my producer, Billy Davidson, and to the artists that played on the song. Also, Billy did play, along with Robbie Spagnoletti, Jake Capasolo, and Paulie Sierra. It took quite a while to get this one completed, but I personally think it was worth it. I have another song on the way. As a matter of fact, the initial recording was done on the same day as Adios, Mr. Hemingway, so it's just been sitting there patiently waiting. I got a note from Billy that he's working on it, so this one should be out shortly because we've got the bulk of it's already finished. It's just a matter of honing it and tuning it a little bit, adding some harmonies, and then getting it mixed. So hopefully we'll get this out quickly. I no longer set dates. I know better. I got to tell you about something that I noticed here in the airspace of Islamorada. We see and hear quite a bit more fighter jets than in the Key Largo area. The Naval Air Station, located near Key West, happens to be a leading fighter jet instruction base. I did not know that. Jet pilots from all over the U.S., from all walks of military life, as a matter of fact, come here to train. So you'll see planes from the Army, Air Force, and, of course, the Navy. Battle situations, things like that. They'll come roaring over the house. I'll just call it the hare being chased by the fox. Let's just say it that way. And you can tell they're going a little slower, and all of a sudden you hear this roar as another one comes after them. We seem to be on the turnaround spot. And what I mean by that is these things come out of the south-southeast, and as they get right over our house, they swing to the right over the Atlantic and start heading back. to the Naval Air Station. But it's kind of fun. I mean, we have our own air show just about every week. So I want to pass along something I recently learned related to life jackets. This is important, aka personal flotation devices. I guess being out of the fishing guide loop has its certain detriments, and it has definitely put me in the out of the loop. Let's just put it that way. The Coast Guard, April the 6th, if I'm not mistaken, completely changed the way life jackets are rated. The old Type 1, Type 2, 3, 4, and eventually there is a 5, believe it or not, have gone away. It's been replaced with a brand new numbering system based on flotation and weight of the wearer. So here it goes. I'm going to do my best. I'm going to try to explain this, but I highly recommend going to the USCG site for recreational boaters rules and regulations and taking a close look at what's going on. I also found a pretty good blog. This guy does a good job of explaining what's up with the new stuff in layman's terms. Go to blog.docwa, so it's DOCAWA.com. That's blog.docwa.com. Yeah, I mean, I read, he's got charts and all kinds of fun stuff. So here's the biggest thing boaters need to know is that it's having the correct number of life jackets on board for each passenger may no longer apply in a way that it did. They have replaced the type designation with numbers, 50, 70, 100, 150, and 275. The numbers are called newtons. Right. No, not a cookie. What's a newton? A newton is, let's see, I had to write this down. A newton represents buoyancy. It represents what you would actually weigh in water instead of on land. So if you are a 160-pound person on land, you would weigh only 16 pounds in seawater. So basically what that means is you would wear a certain life jacket that has a certain newton number on it that's going to be greater than the one what would keep you afloat. As a matter of fact, that person, you would probably be in the 150 range. So these new numbers are on the PFDs. They represent flotation capability of the jacket. Long story short, read the information carefully. What has happened is simply this. The USCG wants you, and everybody else for that matter, besides them, the Sheriff's Office, FWC, they want you to wear a life jacket. They don't want you carrying it on the boat. And we just had several accidents down here. People wound up in the water without their life jackets. So everybody's scrambling, trying to find them. People are throwing jackets from their boats, that kind of stuff. So most of what they're out as is they want it to count on your body, not in inventory. And I'm really explaining this in a very general manner. So if it's put away, it doesn't count. And in some cases, a jacket that used to count, the orange ones that you depend on, they don't count either unless you're wearing it. So it's moving toward a fashion statement. Essentially, ski jackets, life jackets that are colorful, that will hold you up, have headrest on it so that if you land in the water face down, you roll over face up, turns your face up. Things like that are now becoming more common, and those are what will count on the boat. Now, they will not count stored. They'll only count if you have it on. It's kind of like the inflatable ones, which I like to wear, the suspenders, which come in two fashion. There's one that you pull a ring on or a handle on to get it to inflate. Or when you hit the water, it's got a hydrostatic switch in it, which turns it on and blows it up. Now, if that's stowed away and the Coast Guard shows up, it does not count as a life jacket on board. You cannot count it. You have to have one that actually floats and meets a certain size. So what they've done is they have really worked on getting this so that you're going to wear something all the time. Well, except for when you're fishing. You go and read the rules. It's pretty crazy. When the boat is underway is when you have to have it on. When the boat's not underway, it's not really necessary because obviously you might want to swim without it, stuff like that. And the classifications of the jackets have changed. So the 50 is different than the 70 and the 90 and the 150 and so on and so forth. So be sure to look at this. It caught me completely off guard. I was getting ready to do an article about it for a magazine, and I went, whoa. What happened? And I started reading and thinking, well, I can't do an article for the magazine because I don't know nothing about it. So I had to go back in and do some of this research, and I thought I would pass it along to you all. So check it out. Like I said, that blog is great. He's got all kinds of charts and notes and things like that, so make things a lot easier. Okay, it's time for some coverage of the Key West Songwriters Festival. It took place from April 30th through May 4th and included over 150 songwriters in just about every location in Key West. I have to say, I really enjoy the rounds, as they are called, at the Key West Theater the most. We managed to attend 3 of them, and they were well worth the price of admission. So what's a round? It's when the event puts 3 or 4 songwriters on the stage at the same time, and then each one tells a story about what they are about to play. It almost always involves a hit song that they wrote for a popular artist, and in some cases, a songwriter may have a long list of hits. So they pick something, and then it rotates to the next person, and so on. So no more than 4. Typically, a lot of times it was 3, and then it rotates back again. And these last for about an hour, and then they bring up another group of people and put them on the stage and do the same thing again for another hour. This can typically go on for about 3 hours, and they start about 8 in the evening, so you don't get done until about 11. Or later, depending on how prolific these people are and how much they like to talk. And that doesn't seem to bother anybody either. As an example, a songwriter that has a long list is Chuck Cannon, and Chuck Cannon wrote 36 Toby Keith songs. Hits, by the way. Yeah, that's right. A whole bunch of them are hits. I was amazed when I looked it up. Look him up on YouTube. He not only writes and sings great songs, he's also a great storyteller, and he's extremely funny. He could be a comedian on the side if he wanted to be. So that's really what it's about. We also did a couple of other ones that were unique. And matter of fact, we did a Sunday gospel where they had the round was done by a lot of players we know who did gospel music and church type music. And that was utterly fascinating. I really enjoyed that a lot. As you travel around Key West, it's not unusual to hear a familiar song, which kind of, sounds like someone singing a cover, in other words, singing someone else's song. Well, during this week, it's most likely the actual songwriter singing the song is the original and the way it was written in the first place. So in other words, what you hear in the bars is the guy or the gal who actually wrote the song for the person that you know of it as if you had downloaded it. A lot of females are thrilled when they get one of the gals to pick up a song. Reba McEntire was often mentioned. And the guys are the same way. They have certain people that they're really thrilled to have their song picked up. What's really cool is to hear the original song. I find that what I personally love about this, and I've said this before, is I really like hearing the original song done by the original person that wrote it. In most cases, there's more feeling. I don't know, you can just tell that it's special, especially when they write songs about love and loss. And there were a lot of writers up there who wrote a lot about their dads and what their dads did, and if their dads passed away. A lot of them wrote about soldiers in the family, people that they'd lost, and they wrote a song about it. And these are all songs that eventually wind up on the radio, wind up streaming. These are ones that you'll hear by some big artist out there, and I find that really cool. Here's a story that was one of my favorites. We attended what has become the most popular round at the Key West Theater. It's called the Bloody Mary Bash. Yes, it starts on Saturday morning at 10 a.m., and yes, Bloody Marys are served. Again, it's Key West, so the artists selected for this event are some of the best in the business. And Chuck Cannon, by the way, happened to be one of the 4. And honestly, he's a favorite of just about everyone at the festival, including me. After singing his hit, this is really funny, and I wrote this down just to point out what happens. After singing his hit, "I Love the Way You Love Me," that was covered by John Michael Montgomery. Beautiful love song. Someone in the theater piped up. This guy, he said, "Did you really write that song?" The laughter was contagious. Chuck simply answered, "Sir, this is a songwriters festival," and that made more laughter. And eventually Chuck told the guy, "Yes, what you're hearing up here is the original stuff." And I don't think the guy in the audience really clearly understood what was going on. And after the show was over, Chuck actually spoke to us and said that he'd gone over to their table and told the guy what was going on. And the poor guy, you looked over and he had his head down at one point. It's like, oh my God, I can't believe I said that. So, but that's what it's all about for me personally, and for hundreds and thousands of other people that were there. Everywhere you looked, there was music. Around the swimming pools at the resorts, they would set up stages. On the beaches, they set up stages. There was nighttime, daytime, and morning. There wasn't anywhere. All the restaurants that were serving, even the smaller restaurants, usually had a singer on site who had a list of who he or she was, what they've written, what's been picked up by major artists, and things like that. I think it's important to note that most people that really enjoy listening to music have no idea who actually wrote a song that they love. For example, on Kenny Chesney's most recent album release, he wrote 5 of the 15 songs. And of those 5, he had co-writers on each one of those. So there were actually no songs that he actually wrote all by himself. Now that's the beast that happens when you get popular and you get not just popular, you wind up being a top star in your genre, which Kenny Chesney obviously is. You don't have to write songs anymore. All you have to do is perform and move from spot to spot and get delivered new songs by songwriters. And so that, I just wanted to tell you that that's how this all works. The longer these people have been on stage, the less likely it is that they actually wrote songs. And the only thing I can think of going way back was Lennon and McCartney, and George Harrison for that matter, and occasionally Ringo. They all wrote all their songs. You would hardly ever hear a song written by somebody else unless they were covering something they like an old boogie woogie or an old early rock song. But most of the time you would look at that and they wrote every single song. Jimmy Buffett was pretty prolific too, although if you check his albums, you'll find at least 2 or 3 on every single album that he did not write, that he covered. So that's how it works. But it's important, I think, to, tell you that. Years ago, I'll show my age here. All albums had liner notes that told you who the actual songwriter was. And on 45s, that dated me. There's people out there going, what's a 45? On 45s, the writer was listed right under the title of the song. So with the prevalence of CDs and MP3s and streaming music, that has kind of fallen by the wayside. That's why an event like the Key West Songwriters Festival makes an effort to show you who the real heroes are. And heroes, they are, in my opinion. Songwriting is a tough business. Not only is luck involved in getting your song heard, there's even more luck and hard work getting it picked up by a big star and actually recorded and played. One of the things I like most about the festival is hearing the remarkable stories of just how that happened. And sometimes it's I don't know, a lot of it's just by sheer chance. So I realize that one of my songs has a chance, but it's a very, very long shot, and I know that, and that's okay. I'm mostly putting together an album for myself, and because it's long been on my bucket list, and I'm very close to seeing that come true. So let's keep fingers crossed. A couple more songs and I've got it. I think I'll be up to 11 or 12 songs, and that's more than enough to put the album out. So, all right. If you get a chance to go to the Songwriters Festival, do it. It will be around the same time next year. It's usually like the last day or 2 of April and the first 3 or 4 days of May. It depends on where Wednesday winds up. If you decide you want to do it and you find out about it, book early. It's very, very tough to get a room, especially a reasonably priced room, if you wait too late. And also the tickets typically go on sale about a month in advance for the bigger shows. And it's not terribly expensive. You'll find that most of the admission prices are $40, $45 a person for reserved seats to go into these shows. Although the venues are not very big, so you still have to plan ahead. But if you get a chance to go, by all means, do it. Let's see. Oh, it's time for useless information. Imagine that.
And now, from the original book of useless information.
You are a reject! You are useless! You can get a job down here cleaning toilets!
Here's your host, Captain Rob Modes.
Well, he swears up and down he's useless, but
he might be all right eventually, but completely useless.
With useless information.
Okay, here we go. Sherlock Holmes never said, "Elementary, my dear Watson." Writer Edgar Allan Poe and LSD advocate Timothy Leary were both kicked out of West Point. Really? Isaac Asimov is the only author to have a book in every Dewey Decimal category. Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis was the most famous editor at Doubleday and Company. I did not know that. That's interesting. And last but not least, Hans Christian Andersen, author of many famous fairy tales, was word blind. He never learned to spell correctly, and his publishers always found errors in his manuscripts. I can kind of identify with that. And there you go till next week. And before I go, here are some final words. I have a lot of friends, but only a few really close ones. Before going to the Songwriters Festival, I mentioned it to them, and one of them jumped on the idea. Steve, also nicknamed Magic, came down to Key West, stayed at the same resort, and traveled with us via on foot and cab rides. After it was all over, he immediately signed up for next year. Yep, that's what happens. It's very hard to explain. I mean, there's music in Key West all the time. It just goes hand in hand with the artists, authors, and the many bars that serve up some of the finest concoctions in all of Florida. But this is different. It makes you realize how important music is, especially the songs that tell a story that's personal to you. James Slater was one of the featured songwriters. He wrote Guys Named Captain, which Kenny Chesney recorded. That song means a lot to me, and it was wonderful hearing it sung by James. Okay, I guess it's time for me to plan next year's trip. I hope to see you all there. Take care, and I'll talk to you later. Thank you for tuning in. If you enjoyed listening, please subscribe to the podcast channel and tell a friend. Facebook page is Catchy Outdoors, website is catchyoutdoors.com, where you can find all the previous podcasts and news about my books and my music. Until next time, get outdoors and enjoy.